Hello, my friends. This video is for those of you who applied with the newest edition to the N-400. This is the edition that came out April 1st, 2024. So if you applied for naturalization with using this particular Form N-400, then this is the video you want to watch for your review. Remember, when you go to your interview, you will have the civics test, you will have the reading test and the writing test, but most of your interview will be going over your application for naturalization, which is that Form N-400. So today we're going to take a quick look back at that N-400 that you filled out probably many, many months ago, and we're going to review your answers. Okay, so you want to be prepared. Just refresh your memory about what the officer will ask you. And if we look at it right here, it will start with your eligibility. So if the officer asks you, how are you eligible to become a United States citizen? You might say, because I've had my green card for at least 5 years or more than 5 years. Maybe you applied as a spouse of a U.S. citizen. You can say, I am eligible because I am the spouse of a U.S. citizen and I've had my green card for more than 3 years. Okay? Or I'm eligible under VAWA, something like that. That is the part one about your eligibility and how you were eligible to apply for citizenship. Part two is that information about you. This is where the officer is going to ask you, what is your current legal name? Have you ever used any other names? Okay, would you like to change your name? Right? This also includes your gender, the date of your birth, the country of your birth, the country of your current citizenship. Make sure you have your passports with you, even if they are expired. You will also, this is where you also provided your Social Security information. Okay. Part three was the biographic information. That was the information about your height and your weight and your race and your hair color, things like that. Part four was the information about your residence. Where do you live right now? Okay, what is your current physical address? Right, now if you applied based on 5 years and you've only lived at this address that you're living now for the maybe 2 years, please try to remember your previous address, because for most people you'll be going back 5 years, and if you've only lived at this address for 2 years, the officer might say, where did you live previously? And so you want to have that address ready to go. Okay, you fill this out, and they might also confirm that that is also your mailing address. Part five is the information about your marital history. Are you married, divorced, widowed, anything like that? If you are married, they might ask you information about your current spouse, the name, birth date, the date you entered marriage, things like that. You will also need to provide your marriage certificate. If you are divorced, your divorce certificate. If you are widowed, the death certificate of your spouse. If you have had other marriages beyond the previous one, if your spouse has had other marriages beyond the previous one, you will be asked to provide those documents that say those other marriages had been ended. So those divorce certificates or death certificates or what have you there. Okay. All right, if you are applying based on marriage, this section becomes very important because they might ask for more evidence. When you apply based on marriage, there's a list of other evidence that you will need to prove that you have a bona fide marriage. Okay, so be careful of those documents here. Part six is information about your children. Here you wrote the names of all your children that are under the 18, who are under 18 years of age. Now, one thing here is if you have any children under the age of 18 that are not living with you, maybe you have a divorce and the children go back and forth and you don't have full custody, something like that, then you will need to provide evidence that you're helping to support this child. Okay, so child support evidence would be needed there if the children do not live with you. Part 7, information about your employment or schools you attend. Again, start with what you're doing now. And if you're just started this job, you might you might be asked about your previous job. Okay, so keep that in mind. Part 8 is time outside the United States. And we always recommend that you try to remember the last 2 times you left and entered the United States. The officer might say, when was the last time you entered the United States? So they're asking about your last trip that you took, and then they might go backwards. If you have any trip that went longer than 6 months, please be prepared with the evidence that is necessary for that. Okay, here's that part 9. Part 9 is the additional information about you, but basically this is the old part 12 that everybody used to talk about. This part 9 is all about good moral character. Good moral character basically means that you are a good person, okay? And it is a requirement for citizenship. So this part 9, often we refer to it as the have you ever done this? Have you ever? Part of the application. When a question includes the word ever, have you ever, in big capital letters, in bolded, that means that you need to provide information about any of the actions or conduct that occurred anywhere in the world at any time. Okay, unless the question specifies otherwise. And now if you answer yes to any of these questions coming up, then you'll need to provide more explanation. It doesn't mean that, no, you can't become a citizen. It just means that you need more explanation, and the officer might ask you about it, or you might be asked to provide evidence or documents about that particular situation. Okay, so let's see. Number 1. Have you ever claimed to be a U.S. citizen? Number 2, have you ever registered to vote or voted in any federal, state, or local election in the United States? Number 3, do you currently owe any overdue federal, state, or local taxes in the United States? So this is an example. If you do owe overdue federal, state, or local taxes, please be sure to bring those IRS repayment program information with you, those documents with you to prove that you are repaying what you owe to the IRS. So, for example, if you have a yes here, you will need extra documents. Okay. Number 4, since you became a lawful permanent resident, have you called yourself a non-resident alien on a federal, state, or local tax return? Or decided not to file a tax return because you considered yourself to be a non-resident? Okay. Now, most of these questions will be no, 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 no. Okay. Have you ever been a member of, involved in, or in any way associated with any communist or totalitarian party anywhere in the world? Okay. Number 5B is a long one and a mouthful. Let's read it, okay? Have you ever advocated, supported, and promoted any of the following, or been a member of, involved in, or in any way associated with any group anywhere in the world that advocated any of the following? Opposition to all organized government, world communism, the establishment in the United States of a totalitarian dictatorship, the overthrow by force or violence or other unconstitutional means of the government of the United States or all forms of law, the unlawful assaulting or killing of any officer or officers of the government of the United States or of any other organized government because of their official character, the unlawful damage, injury, or destruction of property, or sabotage. Okay, so that is a mouthful in this question 5B. And hopefully you can answer no here. If not, you can provide an explanation. Have you ever been a member of, involved in, or in any way associated with, or have you ever provided money, a thing of value, services or labor, or any other assistance or support to a group that used a weapon or explosive with intent to harm another person or cause damage to property? No. Engaged in kidnapping, assassination, or hijacking or sabotage of an airplane, ship, vehicle, or other mode of transportation? No. Threatened, attempted, conspired, prepared, planned, advocated for, or incited others to commit any of the acts listed in item numbers 6A or 6B. So this goes back here to these top two, when using a weapon to harm or cause damage, or participated in kidnapping, hijacking, even if you threatened or attempted or encouraged other people to do it. We're talking about this. So if this has ever happened in your life in any way, okay? All right, moving on to number 7. Have you ever ordered, incited, called for, committed, assisted, helped with, or otherwise participated in any of the following? Torture. Okay. No. Genocide. No. Killing or trying to kill any person. No. Intentionally and severely injuring or trying to injure any person. Any kind of sexual contact or activity with any person who did not consent or was unable to consent or was being forced or threatened by you or by someone else. Not letting someone practice their religion. Causing harm or suffering to any person because of their race, religion, national origin, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Have you ever served in, been a member of, assisted, or participated in any military or police unit? Have you ever served in, been a member of, assisted, or participated in any armed group? For example, a paramilitary unit, self-defense unit, vigilante unit, rebel group, or guerrilla group? Have you ever worked, volunteered, or otherwise served in a place where people were detained? For example, a prison, a jail, a prison camp, detention facility, or labor camp? Or have you ever directed or participated in any other activity that involved detaining people? Okay. Number 10A. Were you ever a part of any group, or did you ever help any group, unit, or organization that used a weapon against any person or threatened to do so? 10B. If you answered yes to 10A, when you were a part of this group or when you helped this group, did you ever use a weapon against another person? Okay. 10C. If you answered yes to item 10A, when you were a part of this group or when you helped this group, did you ever threaten another person that you would use a weapon against that person? Number 11, have you ever sold, provided, or transported weapons or assisted any person in selling, providing, or transporting weapons which you knew or believed would be used against another person? Number 12, have you ever received any weapons training, paramilitary training, or other military type training? Okay. Now, do you see how many times the word weapon was used in these last few questions? The officer may ask you if you could explain what a weapon is. So just be prepared that you should have an idea of what most of these questions are referring to, Okay, so if you don't know a specific vocabulary word in the question, then ask below and we will help you out to try to explain the questions in simpler language. Okay. All right. Number 13, have you ever recruited, enlisted, conscripted, or used any person under 15 years of age to serve in or help an armed group, or attempted to, or worked with others to do so? Number 14, have you ever used any person under 15 years of age to take part in hostilities or attempted or worked with others to do so? This could include participating in combat or providing services relating to combat, such as serving as a messenger or transporting supplies. Okay. More in part 9. All right, we're going to keep going here, and again, if you answer yes to any of the following questions, you might have to disclose, you might have to provide documentations or more evidence. And also for these particular questions, even if your crime or offense has, your records were, you were told that they were sealed, expunged, or cleared, even by a judge, you still need to disclose this information during your interview on your form and provide all the documentation, all the court records. Okay. Have you ever committed, agreed to commit, asked someone else to commit, helped commit, or tried to commit a crime or offense for which you were not arrested? Okay. And have you ever been arrested, cited, detained, or confined by any law enforcement officer, military official in the U.S. or elsewhere, or immigration official for any reason, or been charged with a crime or offense? Okay? And here they have a box here where you can list anything that may have happened, especially those traffic tickets or speeding tickets that you may have had. Okay. Now, number 16, if you received a suspended sentence, were placed on probation, or were paroled, have you completed your suspended sentence, probation, or parole? Okay, very good. All right, we're getting there. Now, moving on to question 17 through 19. Again, if you say yes to any of these, you might need to provide more documentation evidence. Number 17A, have you ever engaged in prostitution, attempted to procure or import prostitutes or persons for the purpose of prostitution, or received any proceeds or money from prostitution? 17B, have you ever manufactured, cultivated, produced, distributed, dispensed, sold, or smuggled, trafficked any controlled substances, illegal drugs, narcotics, or drug paraphernalia in violation of any law or regulation of a U.S. state, the United States, or a foreign country? Okay. Have you ever been married to more than one person at the same time? Have you ever married someone in order to obtain an immigration benefit? Have you ever helped anyone to enter or try to enter the United States illegally? Have you ever gambled illegally or received income from illegal gambling? Have you ever failed to support your dependents, pay child support, or to pay alimony? Have you ever made any misrepresentation to obtain any public benefit in the United States? Have you ever given any U.S. government officials any information or documentation that was false, fraudulent, or misleading? Have you ever lied to any U.S. government officials to gain entry or admission into the United States or to gain immigration benefits while in the United States? Okay, there's a lot there to unpack. You can see how this goes to good moral character. Okay, they often call it GMC, good moral character. All right, moving on to items 20 through 21. Here, again, a yes will need an explanation. Okay. 20. Have you ever been placed in removal, rescission, or deportation proceedings? 21. Have you ever been removed or deported from the United States? Okay, question 22 here refers to the selective service. This is for all men who lived in the United States between their 18th and 26th birthdays. If you were a man that lived in the United States between your 18th and 26th birthdays, then you were required to register for the selective service. So that's that first question. Are you a person born as a male who lived in the United States at any time between your 18th and 26th birthdays? Then you can check yes or no. If you check yes, then did you register for the selective service? If you did register for the selective service, you'll need to provide the date and selective service number. If you didn't, here's where you might need an explanation based on your age right now or your age when you applied. Okay? Over 31, it's not a big deal. If you're under 31, then you might need another document. Okay, moving on here. We have question number 23. Have you ever left the United States to avoid being drafted in the U.S. Armed Forces? Have you ever applied for any kind of exemption from military service in the U.S. Armed Forces? Have you ever served in the U.S. Armed Forces? All right, if you answered no to that last question, have you ever served in the U.S. Armed Forces, then you can skip, they would skip the next couple questions because they're all about the military. All right, and then you would just go past that to question 30. So these next few questions are military questions. I will just talk about them briefly. 26 says, are you currently a member of the U.S. Armed Forces? And then if you answered yes here, are you scheduled to deploy? And there's more information here about military questions. If you answered yes to 26A, are you currently stationed outside the United States? Okay, so you can see these are all questions for those of you who are in the military. Number 27, have you ever been court-martialed or received a discharge characterized as other than honorable, bad conduct, or dishonorable while in the U.S. Armed Forces? Have you ever been discharged from training or service in the U.S. Armed Forces because you were an alien? And have you ever deserted from the U.S. Armed Forces? Okay, moving on to number 30. Do you now have, or did you ever have, a hereditary title or an order of nobility in any foreign country? So no, you just skip the next one, go to 31. But yes, if you answer yes here, then you'll need to list the titles, and you will at your naturalization ceremony you'll need to give up your title or your inherited title or order of nobility. Okay, wow, that was a lot. We are going to keep going for a little bit more because we're almost done. And these next questions are really important. These are the oath of allegiance questions. So number 31, do you support the Constitution and form of government of the United States? Yes. Do you understand the full oath of allegiance to the United States? Okay, and the whole oath of allegiance is in part 16. But basically, the oath of allegiance is a promise to be loyal to the United States. Okay, very important. We'll look at it more closely in part 16. Yes. Do you understand the full oath of allegiance to the United States? Yes. Number 33, here's that tricky one. Are you unable to take the oath of allegiance because of a physical or developmental disability or a mental impairment? Okay, so if you need to check yes here, that is okay. There's more instructions for you. Otherwise, you can check no there. Number 34, are you willing to take the full oath of allegiance to the United States? Yes. Number 35, if the law requires it, are you willing to bear arms? Bear arms means to carry weapons on behalf of the United States. Yes. Okay. Now, this is a tricky one too, and there are exemptions for this if you feel uncomfortable saying yes to this. But please don't worry, this oath of allegiance is very, very, very old, and the United States government is not going to ask you to carry a weapon on behalf of the United States. Question 36, if the law requires it, are you willing to perform non-combatant services? Do something that does not include fighting in a war in the United States Army. Okay, might ask you to do something that helps the Army, but not fight in the Army. Number 37, if the law requires it, are you willing to perform work of national importance under civilian direction? Okay, that means to do non-military work that the U.S. government says is important to the country. Okay, so yes, there. So again, you can see that most of these will be yes. This carry weapons, the bear arms. You can have a religious exemption if you need to do that. Okay, and the disability is a no here. But all of these oath of allegiance questions are very important, and most officers have to ask these questions. So be careful of those. All right, we're almost done with this. Part 10 was the request for a fee reduction, if you needed that there. Part 11 was your certification, your signature on your N-400. Part 12 was for an interpreter, if you needed that. Part 13 was for a preparer, if you used a preparer. Part 14, this is all the extra stuff. If you needed to provide additional information, if you had more residences, if you had more children, if children were not living with you, if you had more employment, things like that. Okay, and then here, things you did not send in, part 15 and 16, will happen at the interview. Part 15 is the signature at the interview where you agree that everything you told the officer and talked about during your interview is true, complete, true, and correct. Okay, and then here's this part 16, the oath of allegiance. All right, and then it says if your application is approved, you will be scheduled for a naturalization ceremony, at which time you will be required to take the following oath of allegiance. That's when you will become an official U.S. citizen. Okay, and here it is. It's a very old-timey language. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, on and on. Okay, so you are swearing. Basically, you're swearing your allegiance to the United States, your loyalty to the United States. You are promising that you will give up loyalty to all other countries, including the country of your current nationality and of your birth, that you will fight for the United States if needed, or you will help the United States if needed. Okay? And you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Okay? And you will sign your name here. And then at your oath ceremony, after you say your oath of allegiance to the United States, you will become an official U.S. citizen. And please let us know how it goes. Good luck to everyone. That is a recap of what you already filled out. And you just want to review that so you are nice and prepared. Other than the civics, the reading and writing, you will be going over this form. So good luck, all my friends, and let us know how you do. If you have any questions, ask below. We are here for you, and we will do what we can to help you find the answers you need. All our best to everyone. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.